working in Minnesota, Department of Labor and Industry. With me, I have Todd Bosch, who is one of the program's BAs and project manager. He'll be assisting with the call today. And we also have Melissa Parrish, who is a supervisor in CRT to help answer some questions from that standpoint. Unfortunately, today we are without Angie, who normally does provide a lot of context for these meetings. So there might be some questions and some things we're unable to do. As far as housekeeping goes, if anybody has any questions or comments, please put them in the chat. We will stop periodically, and we will get, so somebody just reported they're getting echo. Is everybody getting an echo from me?
Brad, this is Melissa. I'm not getting an echo from you, but there is a lot of beeping coming on as people enter. So I'm curious. Oh, I see one other comment that someone else is getting an echo though.
Yep. This is Todd. I'll mute everybody, and then Brad, you'll have to unmute again. Okay.
Okay, and so put your comments in there. This meeting is being recorded, so we will have it available later. If anybody has any, so please, obviously it is recorded. Don't put any personal information out there or client information. We want to make sure that we're able to post this in the recordings. As far as the agenda goes, we're going to talk about some updates from our last release, some known issues that we have out there. Some questions and answers, and then talk about some upcoming sessions. I think these meetings are most important, just having a conversation, putting asking questions, giving us feedback. A lot of times we do have to take the information down and follow up with you, but it does help drive a better system, so we appreciate that. All right, so some of the release notes, and I usually don't like to read to everybody, but these ones we do have to kind of talk about and make sure everybody understands, where we're at. There have been a few documents that people have tried to access in campus that have come up blank, and there's no error, and nobody can tell why. And what is happening is there is a number of data documents that were in the old system. They are primarily EDI FRUs and some of the rehab documents that were, the way that they were stored in the old system is they were stored as data, and then they presented in a data window for a view that looked like a document. In the new system, they had to be converted to PDF, and because right before we went live, the past few weeks, we got a large number of these. We have to convert them to PDFs, and it does slow down the system. So we're going to do this over Thanksgiving weekend, and those will be coming up. So the placeholder's there. So if right now, if you go in there and you look at it, you'll see the placeholder. There won't be a document, but this weekend, next week, you should be able to see those documents. Null messages will not be accepted for the ID and employee name. This is I'm assuming this is an EDI one, Todd? But that's something that we worked on and fixed. Claim payment tabs on the claim details page will be authorized when appropriate. That's, we've had some people that have had would have had authorization and had access, but those pages weren't showing, so we've got that done. Filter functionality fixed on the rehab cases and the rehab claims, so they are showing in the tabs, and then you can filter. And then the NT will not be accepted for inaccurate jurisdiction claim number. And then, of course, we have serving offline parties will no longer be triggered by external documents. All right. I apologize. Todd, can you talk about this slide real quick? Just have some technical problems on my end, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, so just having a look at it here. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the first one.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm back.
That's okay.
Thanks, Todd.
Okay.
People keep calling my computer, even though I have it set to do not disturb, and somehow it's coming through. So I apologize for that. You know, some of the things that we're currently that we fixed on the 20th is the update. Sorry, the unreported injury submission will no longer show injury report in my queue. That was feedback from the definitely the stakeholder community that those were in there and causing problems. And then corrected the initial IP date on the document generated and to show the correct employer. That's the IP is the EDI transaction for your initial payment, and it was pulling in incorrect employer information. And then XML parsing not allowing illegal XML characters. We did run into this a few times, and those ones, if anybody has missing acknowledgements or acknowledgements that are hanging out there, that could have been caused by that. So we are working with the vendors to tell people what happened to those and get them those correct files. So if anybody has files they're waiting on, please contact the department. The EDI team will just say you're missing an acknowledgement, and we will reach out and find out what happened to those acknowledgements for you. But those characters were causing the whole file to fail, and we weren't able to process them. Okay, known issues. I think we all know we having some issues with getting claims access. As a when you're in a group, you file your UR. Some people are seeing the URs, and some people aren't in the group, and so we're working on that. And then eForms, we're having intermittent ability to submit those eForms, and we're currently working on that as well. So, all right. Do we have any comments, Todd, before I keep going through this?
No comments yet.
Just saving up for the great slide. Okay, how do we get the latest updates on campus? And really, there's a number of ways. So we are sending out our stakeholder newsletters that Melissa does work on and tries to tailor the information to things she thinks that the insurer community would want. But we do have this Campus Central page, which is really important because the Campus Central page does have information on things that may have gone out that you missed, or you didn't know there's an issue. I think there's something on there for the noids. So if you're struggling to file a noid, there's process on that page to show you the noids. We want to have information available to you so you don't have to always contact the department. We know that there's been a lot longer hold times than expected, and it does take a little while to get back to everybody. So we do have this page available that you can look at and get some of that information, and we're looking to update it whenever we have relevant information. We never want to put too much on there because then it gets noisy and busy and you can't really find anything. But if there's something out there that is affecting filings or a known issue, we're trying to get it out there so people can look at it and know, okay, that is something they're working on, expected resolution. All right, now we're to questions. Let's see what we got.
Yeah, we got some questions coming in from Deanna. When are the FRUs URs due?
FRUs URs and shroy URs they're due whenever you need to make your next filing. So you need to get your FRUs UR in, and then depending on the situation, maybe a shroy UR. But that's what sets the standard for EDI filing. So you're not going to see those claims in your claims queue, and you're not going to be able to file your next filing without having a FRUs UR and a shroy UR in most cases.
From Bridget, we have, what about the error received on FRUs? Must be valid content, the merge statement attempted to update or delete. I know that that's an item that we have logged. Whenever we see database errors, the equivalent to database errors making it back into the acknowledgement files, we've identified those as needing to be tuned up and fixed to have better error messages. I believe we are pulling together through CRT some advice about what might be causing those issues. We've narrowed it down to a few general cases with each of those types of error messages. So that would be something that's forthcoming.
Yeah, thanks, Todd.
Another question, we still have a lot of problems getting our EDIs to get over to campus. Will you be waiving penalties for the next few months while we work out all of the bugs?
Yeah, I'll defer to CRT, Alyssa, who's on the call on that.
Sure. Yep. Hi, everyone. Yeah, we had put out some communication earlier before our go live date when the go live date was moved to November 2nd, talking about penalties. And it really talked about the penalties that are not shall penalties, they're may penalties, and how the important thing is for you to continue to do the work that you guys do, which is the importance of paying timely, denying timely, serving the employee timely. For example, we have that workaround posted on Campus Central for the noid 3 situations where you can go in and even use that old noid form, make sure you serve that on the employee. And that is the important thing that we want to be able to know that is happening on claims. And we know that that's a priority for you guys in your work. So again, paying the claims timely, denying them timely, and serving the employee. We are not making penalties a priority by any stretch. And when there are technical difficulties, those are penalties that we don't need to do, and we can consider the technical difficulties in that. We know that those issues continue. We're in constant communication with so many of you with good feedback, great feedback, and screenshots and examples, so we can continue to make the system even better. And we are considering that when it comes to penalties. So when there's penalties payable to the employee, so those shall penalties that are required, again, if you guys are paying timely, whether or not you're able to upload a form in campus isn't what we're looking at. We're looking at whether or not you made the payment timely. So yes, there's ongoing consideration because that initial communication we put out, I think it said until December, and that's coming up real quick. But I can say we have had conversations even yesterday in our department to extend and continue to work with you guys, and knowing that there continue to be some access issues that we will consider.
Thanks, Melissa. And I'll just echo that does come from all levels of the agency, from the commissioner's office to CRT management. That's something that is important to us, is to make sure we get the system right after we focus on the penalties. The commissioner I know has spoken to a number of leaders of this community about that, and she will continue to be in touch with them.
Very good. Another question, is there consideration to delaying the penalty period? We have claims that are not on campus, so examiners cannot file forms.
Yep, that kind of rolls right into what we were talking about before. I want to clarify, like, you guys are filing EDI, or if you're doing the eForms, and you continue to do that, continue to file your EDI, continue to file your eForms. There are some issues like we talked about, where we've come across some examples where a piece of data or something happened to delay specific eForms, and we've been in communication with some of you about that, those issues, and we will continue to work on those issues. But in general, please do continue. You need to continue filing EDI and eForms unless one of those technical difficulties stops you from doing that. But when it comes to uploading other forms, like if you don't have access to the claim, so therefore you can't upload a healthcare provider report, or you might not be able to upload the copy of a document that you served on the employee, we ask that you continue to do that work, of course, and continue to keep those records, and we can worry about getting them into campus once we get you guys the access you need. So we're going to make that the priority.
question about how to file HCPRs.
Yeah, the healthcare provider report, you can, if you do have access to your file, and you can go in and you can upload the report there on the claim. You could also do it as an attachment in EDI.
Is there going to be a leeway before we start receiving fines? Unless you can decide if we've already covered that one.
Yep, I think we have.
All right. When attempting to print documents, filings from campus, we are only able to print the first page. The only way to get all pages is to download the whole document. Is this being looked at?
I don't know offhand if that has already been recorded, but I am going to capture that question and add it to our list so we can make sure that that's being looked at if it's not already. So thank you.
If we need an example, we might reach out. Or if you want to offer a document number, if we can't figure one out. From Tammy, we're seeing a lot of rejected UR filings. We do not file EDI in campus, but same issues.
I think that's there's kind of, I think there's two questions there. I can address the number of UR rejections. So we know that the UR rejections, one of the main reasons that we're having some issues is a difference between the data that was in the legacy system and the data you currently have in your system when you're doing your update report. A lot of that data we use for match data purposes, and it is causing some issues. According to our guide, the biggest one right now, so if you look at our guide, it's the claim admin claim number. We realize that there is some data quality issues on our side, and also business processes for the insurance community where that claim admin claim number can change over the life of a claim, depending on sometimes severity, sometimes, whatever reasons you have. So we only recorded the claim admin claim number off of the original FRUs, and we never updated it. So we're seeing a lot of rejections there. We are currently aggressively working on a fix for that. But it is in the match data rules, so we don't want to completely change our match data requirements right now, because that will impact all of EDI, and it could have a big downstream effect. So we're working on a solution that won't touch the match data, but also will give us the ability to update our system with the new claim admin claim number, and then you can resubmit those URs and get those accepted. There are a few other UR rejections that we're seeing because some of the data coming in, we're looking at conditional logic on those. For instance, if you assign your UR or changing the first data loss time, there's a lot of conditional data elements sitting with that. We're seeing some of those. But the big one is the claim admin claim number. We're going to work on that, and we will have communication sent out this next week about when to resubmit those URs and get those in the door. The second part of the question is, as I'm a little more confused on that, Todd, is after the UR submitted, they're unable to submit their EDI files, or is it they need to submit a new EDI file?
I'm not sure. We do not file EDI in campus, so maybe that they're having the similar issues with trying to do URs through Efroi.
Okay.
And those do the same validation. I mean, it runs through the same engine for that. When doing web FRUs, getting different error messages that have different DN errors, DN 56 is empty or some other DN, is there a listing of what maps to the DN fields? So is there a reference? We need this information to complete the FRUs.
So I just in the chat put in the direct link to our EDI guide, and also put in a note that starting on page 15 for the FRUs or 46 for the shroy, there is the list of all the different DN numbers with what that DN is, as well as the edits that are related. So that might be useful as well. And I thought that might be a good document to start with.
Very good. Thank you, Melissa. Is there an adjustment to reporting of a fatality? We've left a message at the phone number. However, we can no longer fax in the FRUs, so we're triggering a FRUs 00. Is this correct?
Yeah, the 400 with the fatality is correct. Melissa, do we still need to get those reported to
Yes.
OSHA?
Yep, you can still, and you should still give us a call. And I think the best place to start would be right with the help desk line. And you can certainly call that number to report a fatality and then follow it up with the EDI filing.
If I file a FRUs with WorkComp Campus, how long do you anticipate for us to keep the file on our desks in order to follow up on filing the initial forms, example, NLPLD, noid, etc.?
I mean, everything is filed in Campus EDI. So the FRUs would be filed, and then you would then submit your next transaction, which could be a denial, a partial denial, or an initial payment, or I think we accept is a partial payment also. But that's
Sorry, the PD for the partial.
Yeah, PD for the partial. But those are the transactions that follow the FRUs. And when you say FRUs and shroy, so it's first report of injury and shroy subsequent report. So that's how we do it. So you don't actually file the paper denials anymore. You just, or paper forms. You use the EDI system to do that, and then you that's how that works.
Is there shroy filing on a claim with no lost time and no lost wages, but the claimant uses crutches at work since DOI injury, and he can only work light duty, sit-down jobs, no standing or walking?
So if there's no claimed lost time or wages outside of the waiting period, the other criteria when you would need to report the claim to us would be if there is other indemnity paid, such as permanent partial disability, if there is rehab or litigation. If none of those things are in play here, so the employee, it sounds like, either returned to work right away within the waiting period or perhaps didn't lose any time at all and maybe, started using crutches at night or something, it came right back to work and the employer is accommodating. It's not something that has to be reported to us if it doesn't fit those criteria I listed. It is something that can be reported to us. So it's not that we would not, you would not be able to submit the FRUs, you would be able to, but it's really that claim lost time or wages outside of the waiting period. If there's indemnity paid, such as PPD, if there is litigation, or if there is rehab.
When is the discontinuance web form issue going to be resolved so we can submit those?
I don't know a time frame, Brad. I'm not sure if you'd be able to speak better to that as far as the web form being fixed. There is the workaround posted on Campus Central to utilize the old noid form and then upload that to the claim. I apologize, I don't know a time frame on the actual web form fix though.
Yeah, the web form fix should be in the next either next week or in the next 2 weeks. That will be fixed. I will. I'll follow up on that, and we'll post. We'll send out a posting when that goes out in the next edition of the timeline. So, Todd, can you take that down as follow-up action to send that out?
Yep, got it. Is there shroy filing on a claim with no lost time and no lost wages, but the claimant, we already have that one. I must have copied it twice. Sorry about that. If we have filed a UR FRUs for a file that pre-exists, how do I find the claim in the system in order to file a follow-up state form?
So if you are part of let's say you're an insurer and you're part of that group and you have global claim access, if the UR is filed, you would then be able to go into your groups and look at, for example, the related claims and cases in your groups, and you could filter looking for the claim admin claim number or by last name and find the claim that way, and then you have access to the claim. Now, I will state this is where we have run into some known issues that we've talked about with claim access issues. Usually I think it's with a TPA and not necessarily with the insurer, but there are some known issues with that. So if it is a case where you do not have access to it, you can reach out to us. And I believe we're giving more contact information again later. Many of you I know already have it, but you can continue to reach out to us and we will look to see if it's really just an issue of showing you where to look or if it is part of this known issue where you might not have access to the claim at this time.
If an attorney is a party to the claim, does the form get electronically served on the claimant attorney? Is there any place on the document or online to verify that it went electronically?
So I'll speak to like the EDI filings that come in. If there's a bounce back form that is created based on that filing, then campus is not serving that or sending it to the employee or the attorney. That form is being created so that you then would send it to the employee and employee's attorney when applicable.
I understand the denials need to be timely, but when the claims come in with no information on a claim petition, it is very difficult to file the FROI and NPL with no information and waiting for PIN numbers from DLI to file the FROIs. So kind of a comment, but any advice on that one?
For the PIN numbers, I know we've explained to, or so it said to contact our EDI team to help get those assigned when needed. And so that EDI team can be reached at dli.edi@state.mn.us. I will put that in the chat while I'm talking here. Hopefully I can do two things at once. And so we will get that assigned. And yes, sometimes I think generally from what I've seen, it's been a pretty quick turnaround, but there is research involved in that because of course, sometimes there's a PIN request that comes in and it might be for someone who does have a social security number, for example. And we need to do the proper research to make sure that we have the right entity, the right individual. But I think the turnaround so far has been within a day on those. So if that is more of an issue, you can put in a comment about that specifically. But again, if you need a PIN, you can reach out to dli.edi@state.mn.us. And I did just put that in the chat, I think.
We've got some TPAs on the call, and they're wondering if there's any discussion specific to TPAs or if they should drop and send questions separately.
Have the discussions with TPAs because TPAs are experiencing a different issue that most do not, and that is the way that they're getting access to their cases. Some of them are not getting access to the cases they need to. So that, I mean, I think if you're on the call, that is a known issue. It's not affecting every TPA. It's not affecting everybody the same way, but there is instances with TPAs when we're looking at it that they are having issues with that. So that's something I think is pertinent to TPAs. The other piece for TPAs that I think is important in this is when we're talking about these EDI filings and things, you are the submitter of the filing. So if you're experiencing anything or you have questions, now is a good time to answer, or to ask. But, I will leave that up to you if you want to continue to hang on the call.
Where do we find the NLPLD and Web Forms? Is it called something else? I've been doing the old Web Form and uploading it as other filing just to get something over. What is the correct process?
Yeah, so that would depend. And I'm sorry, was that question, Todd, did they specify that they're an eForm filer?
They did not.
Okay, so thanks you. So that's going to depend on how you submit via EDI. Everyone is submitting EDI right now. It's just you're either submitting as a direct connect, so your system at your company is connecting directly with our system and sending the data over, or many of you are doing it with a vendor, so your system at your company connects to your vendor and your vendor then submits it to us. And they're, that's what they do. And so they're really good at taking that data and sending it on over. Or you are an eForm submitter where you log into campus, you click the yellow button to submit an eFRUI or an eShroy, and you data enter the information. So no matter which way you do it, that's how it's coming in via EDI. For the NLPLD, which is no more, you would be submitting depending on what you're doing. If you're doing a payment, it would be the IP, which is the initial payment. If you're doing a denial, it's an 04, which is the denial, or perhaps a PD for a partial denial. There is a document that I'm going to pull up and I will put it in the chat, which is a crosswalk between our old forms and the EDI forms that I think would be a helpful tool if you've not already seen it. So I'll get that in the chat in just a moment here.
I need to file a noid number 3. However, on campus, I am finding it difficult to navigate finding the claim to file this form. I know there is an alternate filing system to file a noid number 3. However, how do I find the claim in the system to file this form?
I think first off, I mean, have you sent in the UR transaction? Because that's the first thing you need to do so you could get access to that claim in campus. Once you have filed that transaction, you have the JCN, you'd be able to look up the claim, and then you could make your filing.
Yep. And so one way that I think everyone would be able to do it, if Brad is right, assuming you filed that you are, and again, we do know that there's some claim access issues with a few companies that we've been in contact with, but if you log into campus and your name is going to be in the top right corner, and you can click on your name and go to my groups, and then your group. So if you're from ABC Insurance Company, let's say, you can go and click on ABC Insurance Company, and there will be a tab below that says related claims and cases. And right there on that tab, you can see all the different claims that you'd have permissions to view, that your group admin has given you permission to view. And you can filter by your claim number or JCN, for example, and find the claim that way.
Do the rejection due to invalid sequencing, no record of claim in legacy get resolved yet? We have the JCN and ESID numbers, but our FRUs are still rejecting. This is similar to the previous comment where we're trying to improve error messages and situations. It also is related to something Brad said earlier about claim admin claim numbers that are getting in the way of getting these through. There's some adjustments being made to how we're handling claim admin claim numbers, and there'll be some guidance coming out on that shortly. But that is the typical reason that message was showing up. Brad or Melissa, anything to add to that?
No, thanks, Don.
Mm-hmm. Do you have an ETA on when campus will send the forms that we submit back to us?
So when you submit like via EDI, those are those being picked up twice a day right now, Todd?
They're being ingested as they come in.
Oh, okay. And so then the acknowledgements, are they also being sent out, or are those being
Correct.
are those time for? Okay. So then when those, if it's accepted, then it would be available with your acknowledgements. If you are an eForm submitter, so you actually go into campus and you data enter the information, and you hit submit, and one of two things will happen. Either campus will say there's an error here, and so it won't submit, or it will say you've successfully submitted this. At that point, you can go to the claim and look at the documents. And if it's a submission that creates a document, it'll be available in the documents. Usually I've seen it at least within a minute or two. You might give it just enough time to go grab a cup of coffee. It might take a moment, but it should be there pretty quickly.
Yep, and this is Todd. I would only add that it takes longer the bigger the file is. So if you're submitting 8-10 transactions, yes, you might have time for a cup of coffee, but probably not. If it's 100 or several hundred, then a coffee and a sandwich. Technical term. All right. Limited data pulled over to the FRUs form, and FRUs require initial return to work date. We have 20 to 40 plus year old claims and do not have the initial RTW dates that is required to submit. In some instances, the employees never return to work. So what should we enter on the FRUs?
Yeah. If you don't mind, sending some examples of that, and because a screenshot would be helpful, especially if it's requiring a return to work date when it should not be requiring one. We can log that and look at that. So if you don't mind, that EDI email address I listed would probably be the best one, dli.edi@state.mn.us.
Is there an adjustment to reporting of a fatality? I think we already have that one too. I know if I now need to file a PY for a settlement, do we first need to do all the other EDI transactions, including the FRUs, UR, IP, SX, and then PY? I see all the old paper forms as legacy docs, but need to clarify what EDI is now required prior to being able to do the PY. There's only 1 week of TTD paid back in 2019. All paper forms were filed at that time, but now we settled the claim full and final this month.
You would just file your FRUs, your shroy UR, and then you could just file your PY. I mean, so the reason why you're filing those URs they stand for update report. They're actually updating our system to set it to the 3.1 standard, but also it sets the sequencing for the next transaction that you decide to file. So if you've already filed everything and you're right up to a PY, send that in, and that's you're sending those 2 transactions. You can file your PY.
Can you please advise what the shroy UR EDI error is for shroy UR rejected for cannot insert the value null into column location? This falls into the category of issues that we have logged where unhelpful error messages are being reported back in the acknowledgement files. So we're working on improving those error messages, and in the meantime, again, trying to compile the typical examples of what might trigger that error message. And you should be seeing some information on that soon. How do you edit an employee's name in campus? It was improperly reported by employer.
Yeah, if you need to change the employee's name, you can file the FROI 02, which is one of those, and I did post the link for that MTC to form crosswalk. So so that might be helpful for some of you on this. But there is a FROI 02 and a shroy 02 to be able to change. The 02 is the change the data that had come in before. And so you would do it that way. If you are an eForm submitter, then you would go to the claim in campus. There is a button to submit eShroy, and then it will default the same submit to existing claim, and you'll want to click on that and change it so it says amend existing claim to make the change.
Very good. A FROI was filed in campus in error. It was then filed via EDI, but rejected as a duplicate. An IP is due on the claim, but cannot be filed as the FROI was not accepted by the EDI vendor. It's technically a duplicate. To remedy this, we are filing the IP via a subsequent report in EDI, but the vendor is asking for the employee security ID, which I understand is generated by DLI. Where can I find or obtain the employee security ID number?
So the employee security ID, that's data element DN206, that is the WID number. So if you have the WID number, that's what that is. If, however, what you're saying is that you don't have the WID number either, a couple of things. If it was filed in campus in error, I wonder if that means it was filed via Eform when it should have come in via EDI. Perhaps you're a trading partner that was supposed to submit via EDI. If you submitted it and it was successful, then you would have then the claim is there. And you would have either received the acknowledgement or you'd be able to log in and see it, and you could find the WID that way. If you go to the claim, you can go to the parties tab and look at the employee, and there is an EE number there. That's the WID number, or the employee security ID number. So you can find it that way. You can also reach out to our help desk in general. The help desk does direct calls to our copy file review team to look for the WID number and to hand that out when it is appropriate and when people have permissions to have that. So that's another option. Or in this case, because there was some FROI being submitted and some information that perhaps a duplicate and such, if you want to email that specific case to the EDI team, we can help you out with that as well. Todd, I'm not sure if you're talking, but I think you're on mute.
Thank you very much. I was on mute. So it's a longer question and I was halfway through it. Dang. What's Dolly's workflow recommendation for filing shroy 04 full denial when an attachment is needed due to not enough characters for adequate explanation on the shroy? Due to time constraints, 14 days, I've been serving the NLPLD with attachment on the employee and submitting the shroy 04 the same day to our EDI vendor. Since the shroy 04 won't reach Dolly until the Mitchell transmission is to Dolly, the date of the shroy will be the next day, thus won't match. It is appropriate to submit an other filing. Is it appropriate to submit an other filing in Campus in order to get the shroy 04 attachment into Campus? Seems like a lot of steps.
So if you're using Mitchell, it sounds like your vendor can submit attachments. So I would highly recommend you reach out to your vendor and talk with Mitchell about how best your system, and you can do that through them and submit that, because yes, there is a character limit for the denial language. So if you have a longer attachment to go with that, you can speak with Mitchell about that.
If we are adding an address to print out on the automated forms as a result of EDI filed, do we add the address as mailing address or claim address?
Adding an address to print out. So
print out on the automated form. So it's an address that will be included on the DocGens, I assume, or on the DocStacks.
So you know what? And interestingly, this came up recently with someone I was talking with who wanted to get that address changed. And I believe, and I haven't seen the change come through yet, so I haven't tested this myself, but I think you can go in as the trading partner and update your profile to show the address that you want to have associated with your trading partner profile, and that I believe updates the address on the bounce back form. But I guess I want to clarify if they're talking about just updating it on a specific claim for a specific entity or for like their entire profile.
So that was from Lonnie. Maybe if that didn't answer your question, you might want to email a question into the into that email box that Melissa provided, or go off mute. From Justin, if I file a FRUs, will previous payment info show up in Campus, or does that have to be entered in another way?
So the FRUs doesn't have the payment information. If you if you have a claim that was previously reported to DLI back before Campus, and that had payment information that had already been submitted before Campus, you would have to file the FRUs and the shroy because there had been a first action on that claim. So the FRUs wouldn't have the payment information, but the shroy does, and it's going to be more of a general, instead of every unique period of temp total, for example, for the life of the claim, it would be like a lump sum of here's all the temp total we've paid on this claim. Or if there's temp total and temp partial, it would be here's all the temp total we've paid, a total amount, and here's all the temp partial we've paid, a total amount. So that information would come over with the shroy and would help populate the benefits tab in Campus. However, also the actual images of the forms that were previously filed before Campus were migrated over. So for example, if the last thing you filed was a notice of intent to discontinue last May, you would be able to look in Campus and actually see that image, see that form there, which would have the information that you had reported on the back side of that form with all the payment information.
Trying to figure out a rejection code using the implementation guide is very confusing. It is not written for the average user. Can you make this easier to understand? It is awfully frustrating to submit shroys and get rejections and not be able to figure out what is needed to get them to go through.
Yes, that comment is not alone. So whoever wrote that comment, you're not alone in that, I think, frustration. And yes, it is some feedback we have taken, and we will work to make those messages more user-friendly and more readable and more specific.
If there is no lost time or only restricted no lost time or restricted no time lost and claim is denied, the claim would still need to be reported, correct?
I am not familiar with the actual term restricted no time lost. So I can't speak to what that is specifically, but I can say that in Minnesota, when there is claimed lost time outside of the waiting period, so the employee is claiming that they have lost time or wages, and perhaps you disagree, perhaps it is a claim that you're denying. For those reasons, it's still, if there's claimed lost time outside of that waiting period, it is reportable. So if there's not lost time outside of the waiting period, there's no claim by the employee for the lost time or wages outside of the waiting period, and it's also not a claim where there's PPD being paid. There's also no litigation, no rehab. It is not something that has to be reported to us, but you can report it to us, including we do see carriers who will file those claims in the past and continuing will file those claims, including a denial because they want that to be on record. We understand the business reason for that, and you are able to do that.
And Vicky clarified that there is no lost time.
Perfect. Yep. If there's no lost time and those other criteria don't fit, it does not need to be reported, but it can be.
Can we add the option to search by a claim admin claim number in Campus in the reporting history?
Yeah, we can certainly take that feedback. I do know if you go, again, if you log in and you go up to your name in the upper right corner and go to your groups and click on, I think I used the example ABC Insurance Company, and that was my group. If I clicked on them and looked at all the related claims and cases, I do believe you can filter by the claim admin claim number at that point. So that might be an okay workaround for now, but we can certainly take this feedback as well.
I agree with the previous comment. It is frustrating. We are manually reporting FRUs in Campus. We are manually reporting FRUs because we are not set up for EDI yet. So to me, it doesn't make much sense for me to look up the codes in the EDI guide when we are not doing EDI. That isn't user-friendly at all. The codes should be provided on the screen or in a pop-up somewhere.
Yep, we can certainly take that feedback and try and make that a better, more user-friendly experience. I'll clarify though that it is EDI filing. You're doing it via eForms, but the reason you all have the same edits. It's the same data that has to be submitted. It has to fit the same EDI standards. But that being said, I absolutely understand the comment, and we will certainly take that down and try and make it as user-friendly as we can.
What is the service of process designee for? Does anyone that has this designation, are they supposed to be notified of filings? If a user has this access and global claim access, do they have automatic access to call claims in the group they are assigned to, or access to all claims?
Sorry, go ahead, Todd.
So how does the service of process designee fit into all this with respect to access to claims?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I apologize. I don't know, Brad or Todd, if you guys know more about the service of process designee, but I can say that if somebody has global claim access for that group, then they would be able to see all the claims of that group, and it wouldn't be restricted because you're the service of process designee, nor would it be, if you have the global claim access, it really is global claim access for that group.
Yeah, the service of process designee is somebody that it's served documents that are sent, that are served on that party. So if you represent a carrier or a TPA or self-insured employer, when somebody serves a document to that entity, it not only goes to whoever's listed, so you have an attorney, but it actually will go to the service of process designee as well, just so somebody at that place will get a copy of that document.
EDI transactions are rejected if the waiting period has not yet ended. We prefer not to delay filing until the 4th calendar day after disability. Will this be fixed?
Yeah, there is an edit there that we are aware of, and we already have an issue logged on that, where the first day of disability beyond the waiting period, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the DN number off the top of my head, where there's an edit where it cannot be a future date. And so we are looking for a solution to that, because we do understand that if you are sitting with a claim and you already know based on the claim that this is going to be a reportable claim, that you want to file it now and not have to wait for that day to pass. So we are aware of that issue, and we're working to solve that.
Is there a workaround for filing a denial if we are unable to get into campus to file the O4 denial?
If you are a filer direct connect or with a vendor, you would continue to file that EDI through your direct connect or through your vendor. If you're filing EDI via eForms and need to log into campus, then I guess we would need to know if you can't get into campus at all, or if you log into campus if you're having trouble finding that particular claim, because what you would do is log into campus, go to that claim. You would be able to click on the submit eFRUs web form and submit to existing claim. And from there, if it's a matter of errors that are popping up, we can certainly talk on a case-by-case basis about that. You can email the EDI team and see if we can help you with that as well.
But the expectation, I guess, Melissa, too, is that anybody who's filing has an account and is able to, and associated with their claims and is able to navigate and do that. There shouldn't be a case where they're unable to get into campus.
Correct. And the first stop, of course, would be to register with campus. And then your very next first stop would be to talk with your group admin to make sure that they have you listed as a group member and have invited you and have given you the proper access you need. If you have that access from your group admin and still cannot find the claim, definitely give us contact us, give us a call or an email, and we can work with you on that. But yeah, you got to be in campus and have the proper permissions first.
If in the past we would have filed a noid 2 and now we file a PD and perhaps also an IP, will a form come back from DLI to serve to the employee to explain?
So if in the past, did you say a noid 2 and then you were talking about an IP?
A noid number 2, yeah. If we have filed a noid number 2 and now we have file a PD and perhaps also an IP, will a form come back that they need to serve on the employee?
So I'm wondering if maybe they meant NLPLD number 2, which would be which would transfer now to the partial denial, and then they mentioned,
yes, NLPLD.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And then so when you file the PD and then the IP, there is a bounce back form, and that link that I put in the chat for the implementation guide. Let me find. I think it was page 7. And I can put that link in again if it's helpful in case it's been kind of lost in the chat. But the EDI guide for Minnesota, and here comes the link right now at the bottom of the chat, I believe. If you start on page 7, there is a chart there that talks about all the different MTCs. And then there's a column, form returned by Minnesota, yes or no. And so it will tell you there if there is an actual form. So if you look at the PD, you can look over in the column and see that, yes, there is a form returned, and same with the IP. So yep, those forms would be returned with your acknowledgement, or again, if you're an eForm submitter, you would be able to go into the claim after you submit those forms and get the actual document.
For those URs that have been rejected due to some of the issues you and Brad discussed, once the issue is resolved, will the EDI transactions get automatically updated to TA, or will we have to resubmit those TRs that rejected?
You would have to resubmit the TRs that rejected.
In trying to file my UR via eForm, I correct the errors that come up in pink highlight, but when I hit submit button, it doesn't do anything. No error message and no pink highlight. Just can't get it to go through.
So that one, if you have any screenshots of that and can give us the example of what claim you're on, that would be helpful because we can get that logged and work with you on that.
Going back to serving Dolly with a copy of the MMI service letter, is the form uploaded to campus as a supporting document, other, etc.? What is your preference? MMI service letter with HCPR.
Yeah, when you upload a document, so for example, if it's an MMI service letter, I'll have to see if I can log in quick to my test account to see what all the different options are. But I will say that if you picked, so if there's that option of supporting document or other, what you pick, there's also another field that comes up that's editable. So the most helpful thing is when you see that field where you can say MMI service letter dated this, or, service letter to employee at MMI, but MMI service letter would be probably a good way to label that, and you can put that information right on the document. But I will take that down and see if I can find the full list and see if there's a better option. I don't know them all off the top of my head. I apologize.
Are you supposed to file the noid number 3s in campus if you file your EDI through a vendor?
Yes. So if you're going through a vendor or direct connect or anything else, but yes, if you're using a vendor and you would file a suspension, so the SX, the EDI transaction, if it's a noid 3 situation, so the employee is having their benefits discontinued for reasons other than return to work, there's that discontinuance web form that is right now. There's a workaround for it, as we talked about. But yes, eventually when that's up and running, you would go into campus and do that discontinuance web form. In the meantime, you're still going to go into campus and you're going to upload the discontinuance instead onto the claim and use that for the workaround for now. And yes, that would still apply if you use a vendor.
Is there consideration to have a training session on going through completion of the UR forms for FRUs and shroy for the eForm data entry parties to answer questions on specific data fields as you go through the forms? Were there any recorded trainings on that one? Do you know?
There's a recording session, excuse me, a recorded session on eForms. I don't know if it was specific to the to the UR, but there's an eForms basics, and I'm gonna put a couple things in the chat here for now. There is the campus website, or excuse me, the training link so that you can see all the different presentations and such. And then I'm also gonna put here eForms basics in case that's helpful. But if we're talking something specific to just filing the URs, I don't think there was anything that was completely related just to that, but we can certainly take that down and see if there's a need for that.
What was the rationale behind the decision behind not allowing the FRUs 04 for a denial? It can be a hassle to file the FRUs 00 through ISO, wait for that to accept, then do a shroy 04. This causes issues with time frames for filing as well as if errors are returned.
So there, the IAIABC is the organization that that kind of dictates the EDI standards, and there are data elements that we are or are not allowed to make mandatory on different FRUs or shroys, and there are simply more data available to us on the shroy. So if we accepted the FRUs 04, we would not get all the data that we do get on the shroy 04, and we had to take into consideration the required filings by statute and by rule as far as the data we needed, and that was a big consideration. And yes, if you go through a vendor, certainly engage in conversation with them surrounding how quickly that can go on, because if there's if you send it to them and it takes a day and then they have to send it on and it kind of bounces back, there's a little extra time there, we understand. So if that can be shortened up as much as possible, that's great. But that was the reason for the FRUs 04 not to be accepted.
And with that, we were at time, so I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who are on this. We will have more answer hours coming up next week. We have one for insurance carriers on Wednesday of next week, the 2nd. And again, thank you. And we will follow up on all those comments that we said we would. We appreciate it. Anything from you, Melissa?
No, I do think there's a few extra questions on here, perhaps, but I am capturing those. So like you say, we'll get responses to those as soon as we can.
All right, thank you.